I hope you enjoy my stories. Instead of just clicking thumbs down, please comment and share how we can do better. If you do like our video, then please like and subscribe.
I'll never forget the moment I got that note from the HOA, I was just minding my business thinking my grass was pretty much okay when bam, there's this paper stuck to my door telling me my grass is too high. Seriously, it was only an inch tall, maybe a few patchy spots from the new sod we put in. I mean, come on, the grass rule says it can't be higher than 4 inches. My grass was nowhere near that. But what really got under my skin was that everyone else on my street had grass way taller than mine. Like, the house just 2 down, their grass was like 2 feet tall. 2 feet, and here's me getting a warning for just an inch. Then you got the neighbor on the left. This guy runs his sprinklers every day, flooding my drainage ditch and killing all the grass there, which isn't exactly making the place look good, right? And the neighbors on the right, they have sprinklers too, but when I asked them about it, they straight up denied having any. I mean, who does that? Not my sprinklers. Yeah, okay. Also, no warning for their yard either. So I call up the management company. They have no clue whose sprinklers they are either. Now that was weird. And when things get weird, that's my cue to do some digging. I pulled up the county records and guess what? Turns out I only own 5 feet to the side and 30 feet behind the house. The rest, it's owned by the HOA. I ain't even kidding. It's not even an easement. They own it. This was good news in disguise. It cut my grass cutting duties hugely. Less grass for me to worry about. But I wasn't about to stop there. Oh no, I was just getting started. I read the HOA rules front and back, even upside down. They don't allow signs with letters, huh? Looks like I gotta take down my welcome sign. In its place, I put up some weird art with a whale and a honeycomb. No letters there. Next, I noticed the rules said our solar lights had to be black. Mine were brown. Well, that was easy. Adios brown lights. I'm gonna follow every single rule to the letter. But I'm also gonna find every loophole and unrule I can and exploit the hell out of them. The rules don't say anything about pink flamingos. Well, I decided my yard needed a whole flock of those. Bought like a dozen and set them up all over the place. As all of this was going down, I realized we, the people, need to take over that board. My slogan, vote for me 'cause my name ain't Karen. Simple, effective, and it captures the spirit of the movement. But I still needed more ideas. Just following the rules wasn't enough. I had to get creative. I wanted to make it in a way that annoyed the HOA but didn't actually break any rules. Like, if they say no visible trash cans, I'll get some fancy decorative trash can holders. And one of those silly garden gnomes in the most obnoxious colors I can find. The rules didn't mention anything about gnomes. There's also this rule about fences being a certain color. Well, they didn't specify the shade of that color, so I painted my fence in the brightest, most eye-piercing shade in that color I could find. It was technically within the rules, but oh boy was it an eyesore. Trust me, it was more aggressive than a neon sign. Some more research on other loopholes made my imagination run wild. The rules stated something about maintaining the property but didn't say anything about it being perfectly manicured. So I got some wildflowers and started a natural garden, which in essence looked like I was growing a mini jungle on my front lawn. All the legal flowers, all the fun chaos. And Halloween was approaching fast. The HOA probably had some rules about not decorating too early, but nothing about the style or the extent. So I decided to turn my front yard into a spooky-themed masterpiece right after Labor Day. Skeletons, giant spider webs, and the most obnoxious inflatable ghosts you ever saw. My yard screamed Halloween 2 months early, and I loved it. Christmas was a similar affair. Bright flashing lights, those annoying carol-singing animatronic figures, you name it. If it flashed, sang, or could be seen from space, it went on my lawn. I even thought about making all the lights in the shape of some sarcastic message about the HOA, but I wasn't ready to push my luck that far. It didn't stop there. I kept thinking about creative ways to poke the bear. What if I started a neighborhood watch, in quotes, but it was just me sitting in a lawn chair with binoculars and a notebook pretending to take notes? The rules didn't say I couldn't do that. And whenever there was an HOA meeting, I made sure I was there, taking up time with absurd yet technically relevant questions. Can we set up a rock garden? How big can the rocks be? What if they're painted? Being the squeaky wheel didn't just belong to Karen anymore. Nope, I was there to bring in logic, sarcasm, and pointed critique disguised as innocent queries. But the most satisfying part, the part that kept me charged up, was seeing my neighbors silently cheer me on. Slowly, some of them started getting in on the act too. I saw more pink flamingos, some obnoxiously painted fences and wildflower gardens popping up. Clearly, I wasn't alone in my frustration. This wasn't about the rules or the grass, not really. It was about fairness and common sense. We as a neighborhood were going to show the HOA that we weren't pushovers. They had to listen to us, the very people they were supposed to represent. But the biggest triumph was the next election. There were more pink flamingos in yards than campaign signs. My slogan was on everyone's lips, vote for me because my name's not Karen. And vote they did. Before I knew it, I was on the board, sitting pretty, knowing full well what we had achieved. The small silly acts of defiance turned into a full-blown neighborhood revolution. And every time I see those flamingos, I can't help but smile. Because they weren't just plastic birds, they were a middle finger to the HOA and a symbol of our small but mighty fight for fairness. I always enjoy the pink flamingo route. Horribly ugly, yet usually within the rules. Find out if your meetings must be conducted following Robert's Rules of Order. Also, getting another neighbor to assist you will help you do more, but is not required. If your board must follow those rules, learn about the required procedures for conducting a meeting, and raise a point of order each time they break the rules. The chairman must respond with a ruling on the issue. If you have a second person helping with this, you can appeal each decision and force a vote by the board. Raising a point of order doesn't require a second, but the appeal does. A bit more on the expensive side, but solar panels are an option. They don't look great, but lots of places have laws that prevent HOAs from banning them. Rubs hands pollinator garden dig a cutesy little frog pond in the front yard creative flower pots. Someone near me has a toilet flower pot. Mow in swirls or zigzags instead of straight lines, beehives, bat houses, just tons of birdhouses, bird feeders, wind chimes. Feed, befriend crows. TikTok has several videos for this. Fish fertilizer in the yard. It works, but it smells like ass-metal dinosaur silhouettes. Bonus if they are a neutral color, so they are less visible at daytime and then spotlighted at night. The shadows are amazing. Squirrel picnic table with corn cobs, also just kinda cute and hilarious. I have a $500 POS truck with a spray-painted fender, and the rest is partial primer. I own a lot across from the biggest Karen in the neighborhood, drives a Jag, and I park the POS on the empty lot across from Karen. I know it's driving him nuts, but it runs, is registered, and is drivable. Not a thing that Karen can do about it. I live about 1/4 mile away and don't have to pass the old truck when I am coming or going, but Karen has no choice. I know it's burning them up. It was a typical Wednesday afternoon, and I was having one of those days where everything that could go wrong went wrong. My car's AC system had been acting up for days, and after some research on YouTube and forums, I was pretty sure it was just a faulty relay or fuse. Simple fix, or so I thought. The sun was shining hot enough to boil an egg on the sidewalk, and my sweat was already pooling under my shirt before I even began. I popped the hood of my car just outside my apartment. I live in one of those places governed by a HOA, and if you know anything about HOAs, you know they can be ridiculously strict. I wasn't planning to tear my car apart or anything. Just a quick check and maybe a simple fix. As I leaned over the engine, meticulously inspecting the fuses and relay box, I heard footsteps approaching. I didn't think much of it until a loud grating voice cut through the neighborhood's hum. "Hey, close that hood. This is against the rules." The source of the voice was a middle-aged man with a permanent scowl etched into his face, and an air of self-righteousness that made my skin crawl. He radiated the energy of someone who'd grass on you for having your lawn 2 inches too high. "Excuse me," I turned to look at him. "You heard me. Close that hood. You can't work on your vehicle in the parking lot. It's not allowed by the HOA," he barked, as if he owned the place. Maybe in his head he did. "I'm just checking my fuses," I explained, my temper hanging by a thread. "It's not like I'm tearing the engine apart or anything." He didn't even bother to see what I was doing or understand the situation. It wasn't like I had a toolbox strewn about, dripping oil onto the asphalt. "Doesn't matter. Close it up. Now." He was insistent, hands on his hips, exuding the vibe of a male Karen, or a Ken, I guess you could call him. I could see the satisfaction in his eyes at flexing his tiny, miserable amount of power, knowing full well that the HOA rules didn't explicitly ban having your hood open, just working on vehicles in a way that causes a mess or is dangerous. My anger started to mix with a small, rebellious glee. I wanted to stuff it back to him in a way he wouldn't forget. "Fine," I said, smirking as I closed the hood with a resounding clank. I marched indoors, grabbed a lawn chair and my favorite summer cooler, and set up camp right beside my car on the porch. I was going to sit there, hood open, drink in hand, and just bask in the satisfaction of doing absolutely nothing wrong, but annoying the hell out of him. As the afternoon dragged on, I saw him peeking out of his window every now and then, probably seething that I was still there with my hood up and no tools in sight. I could practically see his brain short-circuiting as he pondered how to get me to stop without a legitimate reason. I took it a step further by inviting my buddy Jeff over. Jeff had a way of making situations more, let's say, colorful. When he arrived and saw my setup, he gave me a knowing grin. He knew about the HOA hassles because he'd been through similar battles at his place. "Grab a drink, man. We're just checking fuses today," I said loud enough for Mr. HOA enforcer to hear from his window. Jeff chuckled and settled into the other lawn chair I'd set up. We spent the next hour just chatting and sipping our drinks, occasionally glancing at the engine, just to itch at the anticipation of Ken spying on us. Jeff even opened the hood a few more times just to check nothing was amiss, elongating the process with unnecessary checks. Eventually, I saw Mr. Enforcer walking toward us with purpose. I could tell he was worked up about something. He stood across from us, his face turning shades of red. "I'm reporting you to the office for violating the rules," he declared, nostrils flaring. I took another sip of my cooler. "Cool, go ahead. What do I care?" Jeff added, raising his can in a mock toast. The guy stormed off, practically running back to his apartment. We watched from our spot as Mr. HOA enforcer stomped into the office of the property manager. A few minutes later, an exasperated Melissa, the property manager, emerged from the office with Mr. Enforcer in tow and headed straight for us. Melissa was usually pretty easygoing and had already once confided in me that certain residents, like Mr. Enforcer, tested her patience to the limits. "Hey guys," she said, giving me a small, tired smile. "Hey Melissa," Jeff and I chorused. Mr. Enforcer stood beside her, arms crossed, looking like a kid whose mom just told him he couldn't have dessert. "What's going on, Melissa?" I asked, feigning ignorance. "Eric here tells me you've been working on your car." "Not exactly," I replied calmly. "I've just been sitting here, keeping the hood open and checking the fuses." Melissa sighed. "I've explained the rules to Eric multiple times. Just don't make a mess or cause a disturbance, okay?" I almost felt bad for her, almost. "Sure thing, Melissa," I said. "We're just keeping an eye on things. You two could try to enjoy your drinks with less drama," she added, throwing a pointed look at Eric. As Melissa walked away, Eric stood rooted to the spot, his face twisted in frustration. Eventually, he retreated too, leaving Jeff and me to our lazy afternoon. The following couple of days, I made it a routine to pop the hood of my car as soon as I got home from work. I'd find some benign reason, checking the oil level, looking for leaks, even tightening a random bolt or two. Eric would pass by, shoot me dirty looks, sometimes muttering under his breath, but there was nothing he could do. One morning, as I headed out to work, I noticed Eric's car with a flat tire. I smiled, enjoying the irony. Who would he call for help without risking the same wrath he had tried to bring down on me? Weeks later, Eric stopped bothering me. His spirit broken like the analogy of a kid winning a game at recess until it wasn't fun anymore. Peace returned to my small corner of the parking lot. It was all worth it to put on a petty show to highlight the lunacy of needless nitpicking by those who wielded a tiny bit of power. Justice doesn't always come in grand gestures or sweeping changes. Sometimes justice is as simple as sticking to the letter of arbitrary rules and exposing those who misuse them for the fools they are. And that, strangely enough, can be more than enough. Get a very, very cheap camera and tripod. Start a YouTube channel called Pissing Off a Little Bitch in My HOA and start live streaming your engine bay every time you park. There may be rules about working on your cars, but I'm sure there is nothing about filming your vehicle. Bonus if you have multiple cars and can live stream all of them. Also, there's rules against working on your car. There are no rules about putting out your tools, opening the hood, draping a rag drop cloth over the side and leaving it that way as an art project to piss off a little bitch in my HOA. Ever since I moved into our cozy neighborhood, one of the features I loved most was the beautiful grand trees that lined our streets and yards. They weren't just any trees. They were 47-year-old, well-established, drought-resistant guardians that offered shade, reduced noise, and contributed immensely to the local ecosystem. Sadly, those same trees that once stood tall and mighty have been falling one by one, thanks to our irresponsible Homeowners Association. The nightmare began when the HOA decided to cut down 30 of these precious trees over the course of 6 business days. As if that wasn't enough heartbreak for our community, They have plans to raise 72 trees in total. These aren't just any trees. They are home to the owls, red-tailed hawks, and other nesting birds. The ripple effects of their absence are already being felt. Freeway noise is unbearably loud, and the heat reflecting off driveways is on a steady rise. And mind you, it's only spring. I dread to think what the summer will bring. What baffles me the most is the sheer lack of any follow-up plans from the HOA. No stump removals, no tree replacements, no strategies to prevent slope erosion. Nothing, just barren patches where the trees once stood, now a stark reminder of environmental neglect. Apparently, as we quickly came to learn, tree laws in California only apply to public lands and leave private properties woefully unprotected. We tried everything to halt this destruction, including obtaining a cease and desist order. However, all our efforts were in vain. We met with our local city mayor, who involved the city attorney, and we also sought help from our congresswoman. Unfortunately, they were powerless to intervene. When we discovered the HOA's plan, it was already too late. They had voted on a Thursday night under the guise of tree trimming and maintenance. By the next morning, the chainsaws roared to life. The homeowners weren't even informed that our majestic trees were going under the axe. Understandably, the community was outraged. 2 board members had opposed this disastrous decision, but they were overruled by the other 3 who had spearheaded the action. Determined not to let this atrocity go unchallenged, we initiated a recall of the 3 HOA board members responsible for this ecological and community misery. Alas, even with a recall petition, the process is lengthy, and we're stuck with these so-called leaders until replacement board members can be elected. It feels like we're fighting an uphill battle with no end in sight. Seeking legal recourse seemed like the logical next step, so we consulted an attorney who specializes in HOA issues. Sadly, the prognosis wasn't good. Though we could sue the HOA board, the legal battle would drag on for years. Even if we won, the trees we've already lost aren't coming back anytime soon. We even enlisted the expertise of an arborist, who affirmed that the trees were in no need of being cut down. They were healthy and could have continued to grace our neighborhood for many more years. With the trees gone, we've lost more than just greenery. The animals that once called those trees home have disappeared. I haven't seen or heard an owl since the slaughter began. It breaks my heart, especially since I used to enjoy their hooting as I sat on my porch at night. And the heat. The concrete driveways are already sweltering, and it's only going to get worse as the summer rolls in. And so, here I am, just another homeowner angry, helpless, and grieving over the surgical removal of our neighborhood's most treasured natural assets. FHOAs, indeed. These board members are nothing short of tyrants who seem to relish wielding power over other residents' lives. Our fight isn't over yet, and I hope one day we'll have our neighborhood's beauty restored. For now, though, it's a painful reminder of how a few ill-informed decisions can turn a once charming community into a cautionary tale of environmental destruction.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.